The answer to most questions really depends on how reflective you are, how observant you are of things, of your own life especially, of the things that you have invested in, and perhaps you really never got paid for all of your investments, which causes a good amount of loss of time, of youth, of vigor. And then there is, of course, the grieving period, which can leave most often, you can become very bitter. Consider the following story that comes from one of the Gospels. It's about a farmer who's walking, has a bag of seeds. What he doesn't know, or perhaps he knows, is that the bag has a hole in it, and as walking, the seeds fall on the ground. And some fall on wood, some fall on cement, some fall on hard ground, some fall on soft ground. The function of a farmer, I guess if you wanted to go into the profession of farming, your task is really quite simple, which is find a relatively decent property that has good soil, depending on what it is that you want to grow. You plant these seeds, you make sure there is irrigation, you make sure that the soil is tilled, that the soil is relatively healthy, it has had time to recuperate. And then you plant and you tend to your garden. You make sure that there are no weeds, no vultures, no one steps on them, So that is what it means to be a farmer. You have a profession, you care for your profession. Seeds are all about potential. It doesn't mean that they'll come true. It's kind of like you read a book. What does a book do? Depending on the sort of book that you're reading. Let's say this morning you wake up and you're hungry for some magic in your life because your life has been so dreadful. And so you read perhaps Harry Potter, or perhaps you watch the movie Harry Potter, or maybe you've never had a hero in your life, so you watch the Spider-Man trilogy, or maybe Born Identity. You're doing all of that so that some sort of a seed can go inside you. It can be, a source of inspiration for you. So almost everything that we do in life, really, we do so because somewhere deep down we're looking for some seed to go inside us, to blossom, to create some shade, because life is tough. It can be a source of comfort. It can be nourishing in some sort of way. So that's what seeds do. Now, just because you have a seed and just because you have a moment of inspiration, there is no guarantee it's going to last. And so imagine now you're a farmer and what you have is a bag of potential. And like any farmer, like any person who's invested in any task, you wake up in the morning with hopes and dreams and fantasies. Today I'm going to wake up in the morning and make my kids breakfast. Hopefully they'll say thank you. Tonight I'll go home and make food for my husband or my wife, and hopefully we can sit and eat food together instead of him or her going to the TV. So life can't exist without seeds. It's impossible. Without seeds or without hope, what you encounter is depression, self-loathing. It can be a profoundly miserable life. You have a novice farmer, and by novice I mean the farmer doesn't know the difference between wood, concrete, good ground, hard ground. A novice farmer doesn't know how to protect what he or she plants. He or she basically assumes that once he or she throws some seeds around, eventually they'll stick, and after a few years or a few months or a few weeks or a few days, it'll sprout. That is what a novice farmer does. So, and because he or she can't discriminate, because lack of experience, lack of information, knowledge, wisdom, insight, the seeds for the most part go to waste. The truth is, you can't make anything grow on wood when you throw seeds at it. You can't grow anything when it's concrete. You can't grow anything when it falls on hard ground. And the truth is, you can't even grow anything when it falls into good ground, but it's not cared for. Now imagine you're a young farmer and you have all these fantasies in your head. So every morning you wake up and you have this huge bag of seeds, and you never imagine it's going to become empty. You assume that until the day you die, this bag will always have seeds in it. So you go around very casually, carelessly, and you just throw these seeds around. Once in a while, you have a tendency of going back and seeing the places you planted these seeds, if anything is growing. Well, it takes time to go back and examine what you've planted and on what exactly and what has really grown. So, and it takes time, it takes energy, it takes your youth, it takes your life, and you go back, you don't find anything growing on, wood, and you don't find anything growing on hard ground. You find sprouts on good ground, but because of the birds, vultures, people stepping on it, just the busyness of life, nothing stays. I mean, imagine if someone in this class was to say something interesting. That's a seed that goes inside you, and the way it functions is first you feel about it, then you think about it, you mull over it. And as you reflect on the seed planted, and let's just say an idea that goes inside you, as you entertain it, play with it, spend time with it, the relationship grows between you and the idea that went inside you. But your life is very vulturous. You have a class after this. Let's just say it's math. And then you have to go home and take care of your kid brother. And then, you have a physical body. It has limitations. At 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock, you're overcome with tiredness and you just take a nap. And you wake up in a pissy mood. And you don't really know what to do with yourself. The ideas are gone from this class or any other class. And you realize that even if you plant your seed in a good ground that has the potential to take care of the seed, the truth is it needs more caring. And if you consider life to be a business of continuous distraction, life is there for only one reason: to steal anything that's good from you. It takes your innocence, it takes your reflective abilities, it exhausts you. You need to make money, you need to be good to people because you need them in your life. There are moments where you want to raise your hand and say, this class sucks, but out of the fear for the grade, you keep your mouth shut. And there goes a little bit more of your integrity, your honesty, your decency about yourself, not so much me or the class. And before you know it, there is nothing about you that's left. It's kind of like the story of the knight in the rusty armor. There comes a point where you're nothing but rust. You can't do anything. No doors will open. They're just shut tight. There comes a point, I suppose, in the farmer's life where he or she sits and says, okay, for the past 5, 10, 15, 20 years, I've been walking around planting seeds into various different sorts of grounds. I want to kind of figure out why. Let me go and see the fruits of my labor. And it's a very serious stage to be in, because you're no longer 20. You can't walk casually. You can't just throw your seeds around casually. You're a bit more serious. You're a bit more reflective. And it's just something that happens to all of us. If you happen to be very, very lucky, it happens at a very young age, about the good things of life, that you don't really have very many traumas in your life. You take some class and it forces you to reflect. And then that changes the course of your life. And then you major in math and you become a PhD in math and you teach at a good school. Most of us are not as lucky. We are forced into reflection because of some event that took place in our lives and we don't really know why or how or when or who. And we find that the person who did this to us is, as Grace would say, was a predator of sorts, villainous of sorts, and it's going to take us 20, 30 years to figure things out. By the time this farmer begins to seriously examine and reflect what he has been doing for many, many, many decades, he's no longer 20 or 30 or 40, he's 50 or 60. You spent all this time planting, putting the seed on hard ground. For what? Even if it was a good ground. You didn't care for it, or maybe you did want to care for it, but the ground didn't let you. The ground had a life that was far too busy. Maybe I like you. Maybe I have this feeling that you like these ideas. And maybe I'll invite you to the office. And then you'll open your mouth and you tell me about your life, your mom, and then your dad, and then your brother, and then your sister, and then drugs, and then this, and then that. I'm saying, I like Marcos. He's a really, really nice guy. He's got potential. But the truth is, these ideas are not going to last. I can only provide some shade for him in this office from 9 to maybe 9:30, the class afterwards from 9:30 to 10:45. But he's got another 23 hours to go. And I'm not going to be there. I can't be there. I'm far too old. I'm far too exhausted. And I don't really care. And though you may have potential, that potential needs tending. And without the right people in your life, it'll just go to waste. It'll be crushed. And so if your question is there a point in the farmer's life where the universe will balance things out? The only balancing act that the farmer hopefully will experience is they just come to accept. Manny Pacquiao is a 45-year-old man. He's still in the boxing ring. Floyd Mayweather. All these great boxers, great athletes, who walk back into life only to realize that ordinary life has nothing to offer them. So they go back to the profession, only to realize they no longer have the abilities. You know, if you remember Michael Jordan, for example, he just couldn't play the way he used to after his retirement. Tiger Woods, Muhammad Ali, Larry Holmes, none of these people can go back being the person that they once were. And once you begin to realize you have lost your abilities, you're going to become very, very angry for all the times that you have wasted planting things, or at least trying to plant things in wood, cement, hard ground. And because you were a novice, you assume that just because a ground is ready, it'll also have the capacity, the ability to protect what's been planted in it. And the truth is, none of those things are true. You just hope that the farmer near the end of his or her life comes to say, you know what? Okay, I made a lot of mistakes. I'll be careful. The problem with gaining that insight as a farmer now is the following. When you're young, all platforms are a possibility because you just don't know any better. You know, ask any one of us in this room when you were 18. Anyone, anything that walks, they're a potential date. When you're young, you have a huge circle of people you call friends. As you age and as you gain more experiences, and as life has pushed you into places that are dark and problematic, like Job, you gain some insights and wisdom. And you realize now you're 40 or maybe 50, maybe 60, and you want to plant your seeds somewhere. You want to create some intimacy. You want to share your ideas. You want to lay next to someone. You want to go out and have a cup of coffee with someone. But you're no longer looking for wood. And you know what a wood looks like and feels like. You're no longer looking to be around someone who's like concrete, someone whose life is so busy that they can only occupy a tiny little space inside them. And once you're gone, you're completely forgotten. And that's one of the problems of gaining insight and experiences, which is near the end, you really don't have very many friends. You know too much. Now, if you've been trained in this particular art, living a solitary life is really, 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 really good. And if you want to know a little bit about how it feels to have a solitary life, my recommendation would be, don't delve too much into this. There is a guy whose name is Ludwig Wittgenstein. He was a complete mess, as a human being. He was a great thinker. He had millions, or if his father gave him millions and millions and millions of dollars. He invested his money in America and he became even more rich. This was after his father had died. But he wanted to be a monk. He wanted to live a solitary life. He had no friends, he didn't want any friends because he could think. That was his companion. He would wake up, all of a sudden have a thought of sorts, and then he would sit and write for hours. Of course, he had cancer near the end of his life, and he lived with friends until, he passed. But the point I'm trying to make is, if you can find your own ideas, your own interior to be profoundly rich, you don't really need very many friends. You don't really need very many people in your circle. But most of us are not that lucky. So there is no balance to be had, except perhaps the last breath where you say, okay, it's time to die.